The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Pleasure this week to have Coach Jim Johnson in with us. Jimmy, you staying busy after your days coaching championship teams at Greece Athena?
I am, yeah. I travel the country now doing motivational leadership keynotes to businesses and schools and colleges, so it's going well.
Very good. We hope to tap into some of that here today. Mike Catalana?
Good to be
Happy
back.
holidays. Pat Duffy, what are you wearing?
I love this sweater. It's a super rare Soviet Union national jersey. Vladislav Tretiak, arguably the greatest goalie of all time, autographed by Tretiak.
Whoa.
But I also wore my Mike Ruzioni hoodie underneath Miracle on Ice to even things out for my patriotism. So we're good. We're good, everybody.
Wait a minute, did Ruzioni score the goal against him? No, he was.
No,
he
Tretiak
got
was
pulled.
out. Yeah,
Right,
it was the backup.
One of my favorite quotes of Ruzioni about that team, he says, "We may be young, but we're immature." Coach, Crossroads, Syracuse football, University of Buffalo basketball. They're at a crossroads because they're both on the upswing with coaches that the fan bases are scared to death are going to leave.
Well, I think the one thing I've noticed in any type of leadership is that it is important to have a good leader. And certainly right now, Nate Oates and the football coach, Dino Babers, have shown that they have great leadership qualities. So I certainly, number one, would try to keep them and enhance what they're doing. But the unfortunate thing, the coffers there aren't as big, especially at UB, as it would be at maybe a bigger program. So I think the other thing is you got to be really, as an athletic director, thinking, is there someone on the staff? Because that's what happened when Nate Oates said, he was Bobby Hurley's assistant and he's done well. Because there's a big risk to hire a staff member that's never been a head coach. Because the one thing I will say about coaching is that sometimes it's overrated, but sometimes it's underrated. And if you don't have the right leader there, I've seen programs that were good plummet in a hurry. And so
these two guys have proven that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Syracuse football, it's been a long time in the dumpster.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a little bit of a difference, certainly, between the two programs. I hate to do this, but I'll do it for a second and give Doug Marrone a little bit of credit because when he came to Syracuse, they were as low as it has been. But he wasn't sustainable because Doug Marrone was thinking about Doug Marrone. And I think Dino Babers at SU has been more of a program-building guy. And I'm happy they're keeping him. Great recruiter. But they also are in the ACC. It is a Power 5 conference. And if you want to pay Dino and he keeps bringing players in and he likes it in Syracuse, he could stay there. With Nate Oates at UB, you're talking about a mid-major. You're talking about a struggle in order to continue to get players, though he's done a good job. And those bigger conference teams, what are you going to say to Nate Oates if he gets called to an ACC or an SEC or a Big Ten team? It's different. So I think they're a little bit different. But I like, in both cases, what they are doing. And again, you give Bobby Hurley credit, too, because he started that there at UB.
Took a chance on a high school coach.
He really did, and he's done well. But you know the way it goes in NCAA. I mean, these guys, they're going to be looking for those coaches quickly.
I think you might be giving Babers a little too much credit. And I love Dino Babers. He's a motivational guy, and it's great that he signed the extension. But listen, I mean, Syracuse has the money to keep him around, like you said, where UB doesn't have that cash, and they're in the Power 5 conference. So if Dino Babers wants to, he can be a very well-paid and successful football coach. It's not like he's taking anything less to stay at Syracuse. Plus, Syracuse is kind of in a position where they might have to do everything Dino Babers wants because you have another legendary coach that's going through a little bit of a struggle right now who's on his way out. If you want to stay relevant in NCAA sports, you have no choice but to pay Dino Babers and keep him around and give him absolutely everything he wants.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt they should pay him, right? Syracuse makes enough money. I mean, you can pay a coach like that. Look at the Dome. I mean, you've added thousands of people coming to the games. I mean, the Dome was starting to be for football, was just boring. And now it's not. So he's even bringing in the revenue. They're one of the rare schools where there's more revenue from basketball than there was from football. That's starting to change.
UB can't keep Bolts, can they? I mean, he's undefeated right now with a senior-laden team.
Right.
It seems like the door's open for him. Opportunities, I mean, everything. This is the year.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they were able to keep him. I
Past
think
this season?
Yeah, I think he, because the other thing for him, I mean, if you look from the personal standpoint, is he's done a great job, but it's a very senior-laden team, and it's not like Kentucky or Duke where he's going to go out and get 4 of the top 10 players in the country next year. So there's going to be probably some rebuilding, which also will make it difficult for whoever they bring in if he leaves.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We are presented by the Genesee Brew House. We'll talk Buffalo Bills next.
The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay and Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay and Goodman Pizza.
Hello, thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. As we approach the last game of the NFL season for the Buffalo Bills, big picture, was this a successful year for these guys?
In one way, yes, because as we're talking about this now, you would say, when you look at the team, what did you want the end result to be? That you look like you think you have a quarterback and you can build around him, which is a huge thing. And we talked about at the beginning of the year, with all the mistakes, he's staring at me, with all the mistakes that Sean McDermott made about quarterback, he's lucked out. That Josh Allen has played as well as he has and has come back around after that injury, after the terrible way they handled the quarterback situation at the beginning of the year, and given everybody hope, keep it down, given everybody hope that he can be the guy and the guy to build around. So if you just sort of closed your eyes for the mess that it was for the first half of the year and said, the team's got a losing record, but they showed promise and they've got a quarterback going forward, then yes, I'll give them a success. But they're very lucky, fortunate that they ended up this way.
Let me ask you boys a question, right? If you meet a guy who has $10 million because he started a successful company, you would call that guy successful, right? If you met a guy that had $10 million because he hit on a lottery ticket, would you call that guy successful? Because this season has come down to the coaching staff lucking out that Josh Allen was way better prepared than even they thought to be an NFL quarterback. You started Nate Peterman opening day.
You're right.
You have played Derek Anderson. You've played Matt Barkley. I can go on and on and on. The only thing that's good about, I'll give you this, the only thing that's good about this season is we figured out that Josh Allen can be an NFL quarterback.
Right.
But everything behind that, the coaching staff, terrifies me because he's going to come back next season, and that's another year, if this coaching staff can't get it together, that Josh Allen is with a bunch of people that he won't be moving forward. I do not think this season is a success at all, with the exception of the quarterback, because again, outside of Josh Allen, Matt Milano, Trey Edmonds, what do you have to build on moving forward?
You start the season with goals, you finish it with results. How do you see all this?
Well, for me, I do like Sean McDermott. I think the direction, and I'll share a little bit deeper at the end, but is that I think he understands what they need to do. The thing that's a little bit unfair in pro sports is that he came in under some really dire circumstances with tough things with the salary cap. And I think that the real key is what can they do in the next draft, and can they attract some free agents to fill some of the holes? Because in some ways I look at, I don't know if I consider a total successful season, but with the people that they're putting on the field, the fact that they've won 5 times blows my mind. After I saw the first 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to win a game. Yeah. So I give them some credit there.
Okay, but to that point, I saw a quote earlier this week from one of the guys in the room, and I forget which Bills player it was, but he said, without a doubt, Sean McDermott gets more from the guys he puts on the field than any other coach I've seen. But you still put those guys in the field. You still have them in those formations, right? Like, it's great that you're able to motivate these guys, but the choices that you're making and the positions that you're making terrifies me. And just because you have these draft picks and the ability to sign guys doesn't mean you're going to hit on the folks that are coming in, which, let's be real, he has a tendency to miss on a lot.
It sounds like a simple thing, but just let me roll this out. I think, there's a lot of teams that aren't playing as well with bad records as Buffalo is right now. He's got these guys They're out there playing hard.
He's
and
been
not
able
all
to
these
do
teams
that.
are.
Yes, he's been able to do that. He's also been able to look at Robert Foster. That is the perfect example of what he wants. And he had a guy in undrafted. They liked him. They ended up having to cut him. He came back motivated, and he's played well. The transition to what Pat's talking about is getting guys who are the top players, who you draft or the free agents, and you being the coach that can't just cultivate a young guy and get him to play pretty well. It's to get a good player and get him to play great football. That'll be the key for him.
You don't win a Super Bowl with 22 Rudies. It's impossible. And I feel like he wants to win a Super Bowl with 22 Rudies.
In your mind, is this coaching staff salvageable, or are we looking at disaster down the road?
You want my honest opinion? I think it's a disaster. I think that at the end of next season, we're going to be sitting here going,
could be,
the
right.
tells were there the whole time. We wanted to have consistency, which is fine. I get that from the Bagulas. Let's give him 3 years. But I think at the end of next season, we might be sitting here going, what the hell were we thinking?
Well, and what Allen has done has set the bar a little bit higher. To Pat's point, he's shown more. Now you're going to expect more, and they've got to progress next year.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not is next.
Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Today is all about belief. Right? It's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for Coach Hill or Coach Barstrom to believe it. You have to be the ones that believe that you are capable of running the way that we all know you are capable of, and that those negative thoughts that are coming into your head, you can acknowledge and push away. What's your response to them going to be? 5 more meters, 5 more meters, 5 more meters.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Hello, welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Coach, we got Justin Fields at the University of Georgia, who's a highly touted quarterback, not playing, wants to transfer out. Idealistically, what should the NCAA think about these kids who are trying to make an opportunity for themselves?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit old school in the fact that that when a kid makes a commitment, he knew going in that they already had a starting quarterback that was young. So, so he took a risk, and right now it's not working out as well as he'd like to. But if I look at the two situations that, earlier where Clemson, the quarterback, left immediately. The guy at Alabama stayed, and then he helps them win actually their SEC championship game. So I admire more to see a guy learn from life lessons and the fact that, sometimes things don't go your way. What are you going to do about it rather than just leave the situation? So.
But isn't that a viable solution to the situation?
Well, I mean, I look at it this way, and listen, I really enjoy the heartwarming stories and everything works and the kid learned a lesson, but that kid who committed to Georgia committed to a school and a head coach. The head coach at Georgia committed to every single kid he brought into that program. So if the guy who's at Georgia can leave and coach at another team the next season, how do you look at a teenage kid who has no life experience, who made a decision based on what his parents and the coach said he would be able to do, and go, you have to sit out a year? If you were to tell the coaches you have to sit out a year before you take another job, fine, that's great. But if the adult who's making millions of dollars off of this program can't do it, or can do it, how are you going to tell the kid he can't?
Yeah, I like the flexibility for the players more because, again, unless you're going to turn around and say that the coaches can't go, I don't think that's fair. I think it was an odd way they did it this year with the ability to leave. They put players in a certain spot. What was it, 4 games where they can then turn around and say they can redshirt and get another year. Think about being that kid. It's not normal circumstances of, I quit on my team. It's sort of the same kind of idea of giving more power to the players, like the whole idea of sitting out a bowl game. Right? Who are you playing that game for? Because what have we seen? coaches who take jobs and leave, and the assistant coach is taking the team in the playoffs because that's what they have to do. So I think every circumstance is a little bit different. I was really happy for Jalen Hurts because he seems like a great kid, and he was able to do that for Alabama. But not everybody's
10 kids who get buried for every one Jalen Hurts.
who ends up doing it that way.
And from off what Pat said, I wanted to bring up when Anthony Lamb, in making these decisions as 18-year-olds as to where to go to school and what to do, Anthony Lamb, was one of your kids, wound up at the University of Vermont, is doing great. Mm-hmm. But there were choices that you probably helped him with there, weren't there?
Yeah, there definitely was. And, the thing that I'm really pleased for Anthony is that I thought he could have played higher than Vermont. But you know what? It's been great for him. He enjoys it. He loves the program there. He loves the coach. He loves the team. And he's had great success there. So I think it ended up being a wonderful fit. Obviously we don't have those stories all the time. But I think he's really happy with what he ended up doing.
42 against Bonaventure.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next.
And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one.
Bacon, egg, cheese. Only one way to make this better. Another one. Dunkin' Go-Tos. Get 2 bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches for $5. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
We talked earlier about Syracuse and the basketball and football situations they have going on. Dino Babers, who's on a rocket ship to the top, well, Jim Boeheim, a legendary coach who everybody in Syracuse has to love, may be falling down a little bit. We could be witnessing, in our area, the death of a basketball program and the birth of a football program. Now, when I say death of a basketball program, Syracuse basketball will always have a name. Georgetown's not what it used to be, but it's still Georgetown. The point that I'm making is this. Over the next 10 years, it's not crazy to think that for the first time in decades, Syracuse football will be a bigger draw than Syracuse basketball. And when Jim Boeheim goes, who steps in? Mike Hopkins is out in Washington. We were talking before the show whether or not Hopkins would come back to Syracuse, but I don't see that happening. You have Syracuse legend Jerry McNamara on the bench with Jim Boeheim, and I think that makes the most sense for the next guy because it's more when it comes to Syracuse basketball than just winning games and being able to recruit. I think the folks in Central New York want a name, someone they can wrap their hands around, someone that has been a part of their program forever. And the only way that folks will be happy with Syracuse basketball is if the next coach is named Jerry McNamara.
And he'll get a long leash, and he'll need it.
Yeah, I think so. And right? I mean, am I crazy to think that he's the best choice when it comes
he's crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right?
No, I think Jerry would have a very legitimate shot for that job.
Very legitimate.
Coach?
Well, I know we debated this, but in all my study of leadership, right now I've got to jump on Sean McDermott, that I really believe that he is the right person for the job. We've talked about that, and I think he is a really good leader. I think he's going to attract some good free agents, and I think they're going to do their due diligence with the draft this year. So I'm excited about where the Bills is, and the one thing I will say is that, remember, probably the greatest coach in NFL history is a guy named Bill Belichick, and the Cleveland Browns fired him.
What's the one thing that impresses you most about him?
I just think he has a real understanding of where he wants to take the program. I call it clarifying the vision, and I think he relates well with the players, and I think he does love, because he himself was a player that was kind of a guy that overachieved. But I think he's building a culture I think that will be attractive to better players.
I like that, clarifying the mission.
Yeah. Well, this falls into right what I wanted to talk about. Don't do it, Bills. And I think you're going to hear a little bit more about it, because I think Rob Gronkowski is going to be done in Foxborough. I think he's going to have played his last games. He's not the player that he was. Certainly there's a big chance that Gronk just says, I'm done, and thinks he's gone to Hollywood and he's going to become the next The Rock or whatever he thinks he's going to be. But there's also a chance he wants to play. And you can bet that Gronk would love the story of saying, I'm going to play in my hometown of Buffalo, I'm going to play against the Patriots, and I'm going to want to get paid one more time. Look, Gronk, that you think of, the guy who has destroyed the Bills for years, would have been a great addition to the Bills and helped Josh Allen in the red zone and all those things that he does. But Gronk's not Gronk anymore. He's not healthy. I don't think he's committed to the game as much as he used to be, and I think he's just looking for that next step. So it'll be tempting once Gronk is out of Foxborough to say, oh, come on, bring him back home. All those Gronkowskis can all come to the game together. But I would say pass on the big fella.
They're going to do it.
They aren't, are they?
They're absolutely going to do it.
And I'd like to say that Gronkowski, I would like to say that he's smart enough to know when his career is over, but then you think about it and says,
Yeah, I mean, one more payday, a lot of guys still like that, and that's what he'd be looking for.
Alrighty, this is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse, Unfinished Business, presented by Dunkin' Donuts. Coach, good to see you again. Nice
Thanks.
job.
Great to have you.
Mike?
Guys?
Pat? Thank you for joining us. See you next week with the Rochester Press Box.